Hi all. I really appreciate this community and found it very helpful throughout this process, so I'd like to share a truncated version of my story. My ex-wife and I had been together for about 6 years before we got married last June of 2021. Getting married during a pandemic wasn't easy, but we had a wonderful wedding, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Fast forward a few months later, and my wife became a completely different person. She opted to go to the office regularly while I continued to work from home. We both worked from home throughout the pandemic. She worked for a big firm, so the hours seemed to be par for the course. But she no longer wanted to spend quality time with me on the weekends, spending a lot of time with her horse, and began to downplay my achievements, claiming I was no longer a go-getter even though I was doing very well at work. People say that the first year of marriage can be hard, so I started taking my wife on regular date nights to reinvigorate our relationship, but she remained withdrawn and judgmental, which was a big blow to my self-esteem. I racked my brain thinking of what I might have done to make her act and feel this way, but I couldn't come up with anything plausible, so I started to lose sleep thinking I was, possibly, losing my wife to someone else. These were the worst months of my life because I couldn't believe you could lose the person you married so shortly after tying the knot. So I convinced myself it was the pressure of her job that was causing her to act this way, and I opted to suppress the negative thoughts to avoid exacerbating the issues we were having. She was actually gaslighting me the whole time, and I just didn't know it. D-Day. I organized a romantic weekend by the beach, despite my suspicions, in order to try and revive what we had prior to our marriage. I thought this would renew our bond, but she became more brazen with her disdain. I told her I loved her on our way to dinner. She didn't reciprocate, and later that evening she had me take an NSFW photo of her in a bubble bath, and when I mentioned that it was a bit too scandalous for social media, she responded, "That's not what I'm using it for." We have been intimate throughout our marriage, but she refused to be intimate with me on this trip. That's when I finally confronted her on my suspicions and demanded she be honest with me. She denied everything for a while, but I convinced her I had proof. I didn't, and she finally confessed. She admitted to sleeping with her boss on numerous occasions for months and that he was pressuring her to leave me. I went through a panic attack, which I never experienced before, and after finally calming down I realized what a fool she was for falling for his lies. I told her I was going to inform his wife, and she responded, "She'll find out, but you won't be the one to tell her." That's when I knew my ex-wife had convinced herself she was going to run away with her boss. It was sick and a little evil, and I realized that my ex-wife was never who I married. The real her was this manipulative and vile stranger. She changed my flight that night and sent me to my parents' house and told me she would mail me some boxes of my clothes. I contacted the boss's wife via social media as soon as I got to the airport, and that's when all hell broke loose. Long story short, the boss never planned on leaving his family, and in order to try and save his marriage, he distanced himself from my ex-wife as quickly as possible. Apparently, HR had to get involved, and my ex-wife quickly gained a reputation around her office. She cried and pleaded with me to take her back, but I told her she made the decision, and I'm just completing her plan. Aftermath. Success is the best revenge. Life has been good now that the dust has settled. I live near some of my closest friends, met a wonderful woman, and found a great job in CA. I'm learning to love myself again and have realized that my ex-wife's opinion of me during our marriage is not a reflection of who I am or my inherent value. I'm truly happier without her, and while I occasionally feel disheartened by what transpired, I feel blessed that this truth came to light before we had kids. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and like. And now next story. Wife cheated with co-workers who live 6 doors down from us. So my wife and this guy have been co-workers and friends for over a year now. They mostly work together, but sometimes talk via text/Snapchat. He is 26 and she is 33. I'm 37. He lives in his parents' basement and has a part-time job at the company and no real financial future. He's also not very attractive and doesn't seem like my wife's type. Anyway, her boss at work had a birthday on Saturday, and I dropped her off at the bar where a bunch of other employees were going to celebrate. I fell asleep on the couch at around 1 a.m. and woke up at 6 a.m. the following day. I'm not sure why, but I had a bad feeling about her not coming home before I was awake, so I looked through her phone and found Snapchats that made my heart sink. She messaged him at 2:30 a.m. and said, "He's asleep. Him. Tonight or another night." Her. "Tonight." Him. "Condoms?" Her. "I don't have any." Him. "I'll grab some and meet up there in 10 minutes. After I found the text, I took some photos and woke her up and confronted her. She came clean admitting to it all after I showed her the photos and said that they didn't have sex because he was too drunk to get hard, but they fooled around and planned/tried to. She claims this is the first time they ever got physical, but I am not sure I believe it since from the text they had clearly discussed it as they both knew what they were talking about. I am now trying to decide if I want to divorce or reconcile. I had an initial consultation with a lawyer today. We own a house together that neither of us can afford on our own and have 2 kids ages 6 and 4. I'm looking for advice or support from this community. Do you think I can keep this relationship alive? She has agreed to go zero contact, give me full access to her phone and enter counseling. She keeps on asking me what I want to do, but I don't want to do either, live in a relationship with no trust or break up my family and sell the house. But I know I need to pick one. Edit. I also told her that she needs to inform her parents or I would, and she called them both immediately after. I'm not sure why I did this. I guess I want her to own it, and I want her parents, who I both respect very much, to know why I will be divorcing her if I choose that path. Update. So I'm relatively new to Reddit and have never made a post before this one, so I'm not sure if this is the proper way or not to update, but here goes. I read most of the comments here and thank you for your advice. I met with a lawyer yesterday and took home the client intake form, which I filled out in front of her shortly after. I have my first consultation with the lawyer in 2 weeks, as that was their earliest appointment. She has been very remorseful and has done everything I have asked of her so far. She also said she wants to prove to me that this was a one-time mistake but didn't know how. Then I saw that some people suggested a lie detector test, so I brought that up to her. She agreed to taking it and asked to do it sooner than later, so I called today on my lunch break and scheduled one for Friday. The questions will basically cover what happened the night in question, whether they have ever done anything previously to that, and whether or not there has been any other partners during our marriage. If she fails any questions on the test, I will not attempt reconciliation, and even if she passes them all, I still may not. This is all too fresh, and my emotions are too high to make any decisions at this point in time. The only decisions I've made are things she must do for me to even consider reconciliation. In terms of the AP, they work for the same company but do not work at the same store and have no day-to-day interactions at work. I am not making excuses for her, and am not trying to diminish the disrespect she has given myself or my family. Does anyone have any experience with lie detectors? I'm assuming I can't be the only person here who has had a spouse take one. Also, I do not wish to talk to her HR and make her lose her job. If she has no wage if we divorce, I do not want to have to pay support. Our incomes are slightly similar, with mine being higher. And if some way in hell we do try to work it out, I will also need her financial help to maintain the household.